Hello, you gorgeous people. Welcome once again to my shed where I promise there is room for every single one of you. It's like the TARDIS, actually, this place. It's my lockdown TARDIS, which is going to transport you to another place. And I happen to know that some of you have come a long way to be in the shed tonight because you've told me you're in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, New Zealand, Australia, America, different parts of Europe and the UK. I mean, all over the place. So you can see why I say that it's a TARDIS fitting all these people in. And speaking about doctors and nurses, I mean, uh, and all kinds of key workers, we are so grateful, aren't we, for everything that they are doing at this time. Um, but most of all, beyond all the thanks and the clapping that we give, which I do ritually every Thursday night, more than all of that, we want them to have everything that they need to do the job well and to stay safe. And finally, to be paid what they bloody well deserve, yeah? So I hope you're listening, Mr. Johnson. And I reckon it's also a no-brainer that staff in care homes should have decent PPE as well. But anyway, I hope that you managed to listen to the track that I posted a while back by Alicia Keys. It's from her new album, and the song just out this week is called Good Job. If you haven't heard it, well, it's well worth going out and taking a listen. Alicia, not right now, by the way, in a bit. Alicia Keys says that it's a very personal song, which always makes her cry. It's about the heroes in her life. So she always thinks about her mum when she's playing it, or her grandmother, or other people she knows who are struggling against the odds to do a good job. But now, in the present circumstances, the song has been dedicated to everyone who's helping during the COVID-19 crisis. Alicia Keys says, whether you're on the front lines at the hospitals, balancing work, family, homeschool, teaching, delivering packages, or facing other personal difficulties because of COVID-19, she says, I feel you, you're seen, you're loved, you're deeply appreciated. But one way or another, I guess most of us now know people affected deeply by the virus, whether as carers or as key workers, or people who are infected by it and their families. So in a moment, we're going to take a minute to think about them, to say a quiet prayer or whatever, and say thanks in our hearts for everyone who is helping to ease the burden. And so if you have a candle, have it ready, and we'll be lighting that in just a moment. I'd personally just like to give a shout for Sarah, one of our neighbours. She lives just a few doors away, who leaves her family every day, every night actually, to go to the hospital where she works because she's a nurse offering care and support in this very stressful situation, as she does, to be fair, night in, night out throughout the year anyway. There's also Emma, our paediatrician friend in London, who with her team is worked off her feet. In a few weeks I was supposed to be helping Emma and Chris to get married, but well, that's all on hold for now. I'd also like to say a prayer. In fact, I'll light my candle for Lorna, an occupational therapist in the Northeast with COVID-19, who sadly didn't get her PPE in time. And there are so many others, some of whom you can name for yourselves as we take this minute to be quiet and light a candle for our country, for our world. Let's do that now. Okay, so the bird of the day for today is the humble so-called domestic pigeon, not the elegant ringdove or wood pigeon, but its everyday towny cousin. Here are some taking a bath in the Vicarage Garden where we used to live in North London. I think they're fabulous. Now, a few years ago, in my Christmas Day talk to the children, I encouraged everyone to be grateful for life's ordinary gifts. And I showed some pictures I'd taken in the garden of a woodpecker, some goldfinches and a lovable robin. Gifts that we mostly take for granted. And then I showed these pigeons taking a bath and said how grateful I felt for them too. Well, I was not a little shocked by some of the reactions from my lovely congregation. Yuck, someone grunted. Flying vermin, someone else called out, to my horror. But I mean, hey, take a look at this bird. Pigeons have beautiful plumage with that brilliant sheen around their necks that really glows when the sun shines on it. So I decided that one day, maybe today, I would launch the PLF, the Pigeons Liberation Front. I mean, maybe it's because I feel I'm a bit of a towny pigeon sometimes. My mum always used to say, David, don't be so common. But hey, aren't pigeons birds too? Beautiful creatures. The so-called domestic pigeon is actually derived from the not so well-known rock dove, and its so-called domestication goes back something like 10,000 years. I mean, pigeons are awesome, man. They can fly at an average speed of 77 miles an hour. They've been recorded flying at over 90 miles an hour. They can fly 600, 700 miles in a single day. And, well, just in case you think that lockdown's finally got to me, tipped me over the edge, just hang in a minute. Because pigeons, have made a significant contribution to society in many ways, to war efforts. Not their fault that they were drafted, because of their incredible ability as messenger carriers, along with other animals like dogs and horses. They've actually been awarded medals for gallantry, believe it or not. Now, a few days ago, I posted a picture on Facebook of a red tulip in the midst of a swathe of bluebells. I mean, frankly, the tulip was past its best. Its petals were still in place, but they were a little bit floppy, if you know what I mean. But when the sun was shining through its petals, the rich red flower, as you can see, was spectacular. And so I just added on Facebook the words, just because you're falling apart a bit, don't mean you're not beautiful. Well, it's the same thing, I reckon. Just because you're a towny pigeon, don't mean you're not a beautiful bird. So here's my point. We're not all elegant avocets with those beautiful upturned bills. We're not all awesome red kites effortlessly soaring the skies. Most of us don't feel like proud tulips with petals at their peak. But that's okay. We're beautiful human persons, as my mate Pip Wilson used to tell everyone at Greenbelt Festival. You, my friend, you listening here now, are a beautiful human being, even if your feathers get ruffled a bit more than usual in lockdown. I mean, look, these are stressful times. As I'll be saying on Pause for Thought tomorrow morning on the radio, most of us feel like someone took our life away. And we're now living a different life, which is sometimes fantastic. I mean, let's be honest, especially if your local pub delivers fish and chips like ours does. But it's sometimes traumatic, sometimes just bloody scary. And most of us aren't saints, not in that sense anyway. So yeah, we lose it. We lose it sometimes. We can't find the wood in the middle of the trees. We maybe get grumpy and irritable. We may have a bad hair day. I mean, why do you think I wear my cap all the time? But listen, perfection is a pipe dream. We're not supposed to be perfect. We're just supposed to know how to say sorry, how to back up, back off, how to take a deep breath and start again. Yeah? Every week for the 19 years that I was vicar at St. Luke's, and I'm sure it continues, we began the service by acknowledging that we were not perfect, that we'd probably screwed up in some way during the week. Now, I'm not a big fan of grovelling confessions, miserable offenders and all that kind of stuff. I hate the guilt trip, actually, that often attends religion. But I reckon it's a good thing, good for our mental health, actually, to concede that we're imperfect, to acknowledge sometimes our flaws and affirm our aspirations. So let me say to you right now what I said to my beautiful North London community for 19 years. Friends, for all the ways in which you have felt disappointed with your words, thoughts or actions, you are forgiven. Forgive yourself. Forgive others. Amen. And that's often the hardest thing, forgiving yourself. You don't need to plead with God for forgiveness. Take that as read. We are loved and accepted, flaws and all. No, the real task, the hard bit, is to forgive ourselves and to then forgive others. As ever, the wonderful poet Mary Oliver puts it so well in one of her best loved poems. Some of you will know it well. It's called Wild Geese, and it goes like this. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese high in the clean blue air are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. In her book Daring Greatly, Brené Brown writes, wholehearted living is about engaging in our lives from a place of worthiness. Wholehearted living is about engaging in our lives from a place of worthiness. I am enough. Yes, I'm imperfect, vulnerable, and sometimes afraid, but that doesn't change the truth that I'm also brave and worthy of love and belonging. Now, I've taken some of those words and put them up here as an affirmation, which I'd like us all to say together now. Would you say this with me? Yes, I am imperfect, vulnerable, and sometimes afraid, but that doesn't change the truth that I am also brave and worthy of love and belonging. So we're now going to have a little communion together. Maybe you've got some bread and wine. I think you know by now what I have here. This isn't Westminster Abbey or somewhere. It's my shed. We don't stand on ceremony. Nobody's watching, so we can have what we want. If you've got a cup of tea and a piece of cake, that's fine, because what we're doing here today is just simply joining together in this great communion of saints, this communion of people, imperfect people around the globe who are all struggling with the same thing right now. So it doesn't matter whether you're confirmed or not confirmed, whether you're a Christian or you can be an atheist for all I care. I'm inviting you to this little table of Jesus Christ in my shed, where all are welcome and no one is turned away. And so if you'd like to join in, then please do that. I'm going to say a prayer, and then we'll together at the end eat our bread, or in my case a cracker, and drink our wine or whiskey or orange juice or cup of tea or whatever it is that you have. So maybe you can say the words in white as a response to me. The God of love is with you, and also with you. Lift up your hearts. We lift them up with hope for ourselves and our world. Let us give thanks to the giver of life. we give thanks for the wonder of life and love and friendship. Loving God, we remember the night before Jesus died, when he took bread. He gave thanks for everything he had. He broke the bread and shared it with his friends, asking them to remember his full surrender to the spirit of life and love, and his enduring love for each of them. We also give thanks for 10,000 demonstrations of Christly love in our world every moment of every day. Nurses and doctors and key workers labouring all hours, putting their lives at risk during this pandemic. This too is my body, this is my blood. Volunteers giving time to help and support strangers, neighbours, and especially the vulnerable. This too is my body, this is my blood. Mothers, fathers and others making daily sacrifices in caring for their families and friends, juggling work, domestic life and the education of children. This too is my body, this is my blood. And so as we eat this bread and drink this cup, we proclaim Christ's death and resurrection, reenacted in our world 1,000,000 times each day, in magnificent and routine expressions of outpoured love. So come, life-giving Spirit of God, brood over these gifts of bread and wine or whatever, as they become part of us. May we become part of the great movement to bring love in our world. Amen. Let's join together in these words of the Lord's Prayer from the Australian Prayer Book. Eternal Spirit, Earth Maker, Pain Bearer, Life Giver, Source of all that is and that shall be, Father and Mother of us all, loving God in whom is heaven, the hallowing of your name echo through the universe, the way of your justice be followed by the peoples of the world. Your heavenly will be done by all created beings. Your commonwealth of peace and freedom sustain our hope and come on earth. With the bread we need for today, feed us. In the hurts that we absorb from one another, forgive us. In times of temptation and test, strengthen us. From trials too great to endure, spare us. From the grip of all that is evil, free us. For you reign in the glory of the power that is love, now and forever. Amen. And so as we enjoy this little bunch of pigeons finding something to eat, I like, by the way, the fact that one of them is an odd one out. That could be me. I invite you to take your bread or your cracker or whatever and eat it now, remembering that God has poured out his love for the world and for you. Amen. As you take the wine, receive this as a token of God's love given unreservedly to you and to the world. Amen. Pigeons gave up and went home. Well, that's just about it here this evening, dear friends. Thank you for being part of the shed again tonight. As I say, I'm on Pause for Thought tomorrow morning on Radio 2, somewhere around 9:20 with Zoe Ball. This is the last in my present little run. I'll be back again in June doing more Pause for Thoughts. But if you can join me, that'll be fine. And later in the day, I'll put up a link to those who couldn't hear it first time round. So I'm just inviting you now to join me again in saying the words of the Serenity Prayer that I rewrote especially for our present times. We say together, God grant me the serenity to live fully and generously through circumstances I cannot control. Hope to keep on imagining better times for myself and the world. And courage to change what I can instead of simply leaving it to others. Amen. And now the blessing of God, the eternal goodwill of God, the shalom and salam of God, the wildness and warmth of God be among us and between us now and always. And the blessing of God, Creator, Liberator and Sustainer, be with us now and always. Amen. Thank you again once again for joining me, and have a good week. Don't know what you're doing. Oh, you're probably staying at home. But go safely, and I'll see you again very soon. Thank you. Bye.